The ICPSP has over 15,000 members and is a non-profit membership and research organization for corporate and public sector professionals. ICPSP is dedicated to supporting professionals whose daily effort impacts people's lives in ways that are felt far beyond the workplace by helping to create better managers and leaders. And you all agree with me that it becomes very imperative at this time, considering the pandemic, that we need better managers and leaders who can help take us to the new normal and new stage of transformation and development. So today we will have the opportunity to listen to incisive presentations from seasoned scholars, experts, and analysts, alongside robust panel discussions that will cover key topics that relate to public and corporate sector professionals, their service, and their contributions to society. The aim of this conference is to achieve the following: to address the current state of our nation and our citizens during and after the pandemic. It will also explore how the Institute, together with our members, can lead change agenda in order to foster economic recovery, poverty eradication, and nation building. I'd like to inform all our guests that today is a significant day because of the current reforms we're seeing by this current administration. We have our keynote speaker, who is a scholar, erudite scholar indeed, who will be speaking on the topic, the state of the nation and her citizens during and after the pandemic. He is the Dean of Faculty of Management Sciences, Lagos State University. I'm talking about no other person but Professor Babatunde Yusuf. Is the Dean of that Faculty of Management Sciences and will be giving us the keynote presentation for this conference.
The National Executive Council of the Institute of Corporate and Public Sector Professionals, distinguished guest speakers, captain of industries, representative of professional bodies and other academic institutions. The ICPC directorate led by the acting registrar, the chairman of the ICPSP 2020 annual conference, respected colleagues, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here as a keynote speaker for the 2020 annual conference of the Institute of Corporate and Public Sector Professionals. I'm here to speak on the title of this year's conference that talks about COVID-19 pandemic, lessons for Nigeria, the way forward. I'm Professor Babatunde Yusuf. My note is outlined as follows: the introduction, Nigeria's challenges pre-COVID-19 pandemic, impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on Nigeria economy, the way forward, the government tactics and strategy, firm strategy, lessons from the world, and my final thought. I want to look at introduction now. The COVID-19 pandemic presents the world with a huge challenge. The lockdown that followed has deprived billions of people their social and economic freedom, resulted in a total closure of academic and religious activities, as well as compulsory stay and work from home. You can see clearly that everyone and everything is affected by COVID-19 pandemic, and the response has to be quick and global. Consequently, I want to say that COVID-19 highlights the need for vigilance, proactive, as well as reformed governance institutions. So let me look at major challenges in Nigeria before COVID-19 outbreak. We have corruption, economic issues, crime and terrorism, the Boko Haram, insurgency, banditry, and so on. Education and university systems issue, infrastructure deficit, gender-based discrimination, massive spike in unemployment, massive number of people in informal sector not earning daily wages, wage between lockdown and recession, huge food security challenge, fiscal crisis at both federal and state levels, and depletion of external reserves. I want to look at just two, which is the major for now. The two challenges I want to pick today is corruption and economic challenges. Corruption is at the root of many of Nigerians' problems. It takes many forms and infiltrates all political institutions and economic sectors. It is so sad to hear that the government, which is set up to build the country and fight any form of corruption, is now stealing from our own people. Again, abuse of power is observed in almost all the government arms of the Federation. Now, impact of COVID-19 on the Nigerian economy. The economic state of Nigeria has really had a downturn due to this pandemic. So you can see low consumption rate. The earnings of the country per year have reduced, affecting greatly the citizens of the country negatively. In terms of GDP, gross domestic product of Nigeria, the rate of growth has been sluggish in recent years, as shown in the next slide. Oil price collapse is another one, and finally you can see increasing poverty level. The chart I'm trying to show is on GDP growth. I'm trying to look at the 2019 GDP versus 2020. So if you look at first quarter of 2019, the Nigerian GDP's growth rate is 2.01. And when you compare with the first quarter of 2020, we have 1.87. And then by the time you look at second quarter of 2019, that we are talking about 1.85. Though second quarter of 2020 is yet to be published, but it has been forecasted that is far below what we have in 2019. And I want to also look at other important indices, such as inflation rate, interest rate, and the exchange rate. Again, the salaries earned by workers can no longer buy tangible items from the market. It is a threat to the lives of many people, and that is one of the reasons why many workers frequently demand pay rise. I want to show you another slide on inflation rate. If you look at the inflation rate in 2019, we are talking about 11%. But by the time you compare inflation rates in 2020, you can see 12.24. The figure is so massive. And again, when you look at 2020, the second quarter of 2020, we are talking about 12.56, and that's so high. And there's need for the government to move, takes a bold step on that. Again, you look at the exchange rate, parallel market exchange rate. By 2019, we are talking about 360 naira to a dollar. Saying it was pegged at 361 naira to a dollar. But what happened in 2020 by first quarter, we are talking about 415 naira to a dollar. And again, by second quarter, we are talking about 460 naira to a dollar. As we speak now, we are talking about 470 or even more. That means in this third quarter, we are still running. So you can continue on and on like that. You see that the effect of COVID-19 is so much on the Nigerian economy. I want to also look at the effect on poverty rates in Nigeria. In 2019, the poverty rate was taken to be 40.1. But by 2020, just first to second quarter of 2020, we are talking about 46.5% of the population. So you can see the effect again on that. So let's also look at the effect on trade and investment disruptions. Nigeria's investment and trade are mostly with China, US, and Europe, which have all been hit hard by COVID-19. So the slowdown of economic activities in these locations I mentioned led to a sharp decline in trade and investment raising the risk of an economic recession. I want to talk about the manufacturers relying on imported inputs. Nigerians, manufacturers in Nigeria relying on imported inputs. They face production challenges, while reduced importation of food and pharmaceutical products to the country also put a heavy burden on households and the health care system. You can also see the sharp decline in government earnings due to oil price collapse. So Nigeria lost about 90% of its export as fuel prices continue to fall. Already, about 60% of federal government revenue is currently being used to service debt obligation. You know the effect of that. Again, I want to say that some state governments will struggle to pay employee salaries and related costs similar to what happened during 2014 to 2016 oil price crisis. Again, we will now need to look at the high poverty level as a result of the COVID-19. I'm saying that Nigeria currently has the largest number and extremely poor people in the world. We are talking about today about 95 million. So unemployment and poverty will worsen with this COVID-19 pandemic as workers in trade, sensitive business, particularly tourism, transport, hospitality, and non-essential manufactured goods are disengaged due to restricted movement of goods, services, and people. Again, remittance from abroad, which support many households, may also fall and worsen economic hardship of Nigerians. I want to show you a slide of foreign trade in Nigeria pre and during this COVID. You can see by 2019, we are talking about 10.2 trillion our foreign trade. By first quarter of 2020, we are talking about 8.3 trillion. You can see it has declined drastically. And then the question is, declining in social spending too should also be looked at. Already grossly underfunded social sectors such as health, education, and social safety nets will be negatively affected with this COVID-19 pandemic. So crime is projected to increase. I think some of us are staying in Lagos witness the so-called 1 million boys and so many social crimes during the period. So what is the way forward? Government tactics and strategy first. Adequate support should be provided by government to the healthcare system. Again, government should provide incentives and safety nets to those, to the most vulnerable ones. Again, the government should reduce cost of governance and improve transparency at all levels of government. Again, massive investment in infrastructure through local and international bond market. And then a localized IT should be considered. IT is what we needed now. COVID-19 has exposed that so many things that we are looking for big offices can be done without even entering or leaving your home. But without IT knowledge, nothing can be achieved. Suggestion here is government should encourage, government itself should take up a massive investment on IT, encourage business organizations to invest much on IT. Household too, individuals should have the mind of training, having adequate training of IT. The last one I want to mention for the government is there is need for government to fast track the structuring of the economy towards agricultural development. Let me now look at business and organization tactics. What can be suggested? First is the crisis through risk management. Remember, coronavirus is most likely to create three related threats: public safety, financial loss, and reputation loss. And if crisis management is not properly handled, and then you can see in a timely manner, it can put employees' health at a risk. The second is operations and supply chain management. supply chain management. Most African countries, Nigeria inclusive, is dependent on China for major input. Establishment of new supply arrangement is imminent now, though it may expose businesses to additional costs. I want to say that due diligence from a supply chain compliance perspective should be identified. Also, indirect tax consequences of any changes in regards to the source of supplies, the location of exports, transport routes across borders should also be assessed. The third one I want to suggest to business operators is maximizing the use of government. They need to maximize the use of government support policies. What I mean by that, some of these policies such as CBN grants to hold deposit money banks and temporary restructuring of loan terms for business stroke household affected by COVID-19 should be noted. Again, SEC 60-day extension for public companies and capital market operators to file their 2019 annual report and first quarter 2020 report should also be considered. FIRS concessions on filing deadline for companies is also another policy of government that the business needs to maximize. Then I think taking advantage of tax policies that encourage donations should also be noted. Number 4, businesses should pay attention to and implement measures to address some of these things I want to mention under finances. 1, revenue pressures and debt sustainability issues should be carefully addressed. Unnecessary cost escalations should be avoided. Pressure on exchange rate stability via swift involvement in hedging should also be noted. Potential pressure on the income and consumption power is another one. Increased credit risk, default and lower recoveries due to inactive markets for collaterals. Reduce cash inflows from loan repayment is another one. Fair value losses due to increased credit spreads should be noted. And finally, for my suggestion, among others, reduced profit levels and capital depletion should also be noted. Conclusively, we can learn from the rest of the world using some of the holistic strategy adopted in developed economies, such as the mortgage release, tax waivers and the deductions, suspension of audit, filing extension, impairment release, internet-free loans if we need that, payment moratorium, and so on. My final thought. We've said a lot. I want to say that this period, COVID-19 pandemic period, is quite challenging to Nigeria and the rest of the world. We must not waste the lessons learned from the experience worldwide. The experience there shows that, like I said, a lot of things needed to be corrected in Nigeria. Our overdependence, depending so much on imported goods, we have to look at it. Our reliance on over 80 or 90% of what we needed, whereas Nigerians should wake up. Emphasis on imported goods should be avoided or reduced drastically if need be. And that's the only way we can grow. Again, I want to say that we must not waste the lesson, like I said, from the rest of the world. And if China and Europe can, we can. I want to quote from John F. Kennedy. He says, in a crisis, beware of the danger, but recognize the opportunity. So we are now in a crisis. The danger is there now. The fact that we are relying so much, all the problems we have identified, corruptions and the rest, we have to now lose this opportunity this COVID-19 pandemic has created. On that note, I'm running up by saying thank you for listening, and I believe all the discussants and other speakers will do justice for what we have done. Nigeria will fly again. Thank you.
We have a lead speaker who will be speaking on a very interesting topic, which will be of interest to everyone, from Africa to even Nigeria, because it has continued to be a major narrative of discussion that needs to be addressed to unlock growth and development in the continent. The lead speaker is Mr. Olanrewaju Sharafa, a principal lecturer and head of division, Adult Learning, Research and Enterprise, Tower College, London, United Kingdom. He will be speaking on extreme poverty, a symptom of COVID-19 in Africa.
Thank you very much, our moderator. Thank you so much to all our viewers all over the world. I'm very pleased to be here to speak as the lead paper presenter at the 2020 ICPSP annual conference with the theme Lesson from COVID-19, Sharing Ideas with Experts. My topic today revolves around extreme poverty, a symptoms of COVID-19 in Africa. I'm not going to take too much of your time in the course of my presentation. Perhaps I should say that my presentation is an extract of a comprehensive lecture paper that I've passed to the Institute to sort of share with all the delegates and everyone who is currently at this conference. But before I go further, I'd like to observe the protocols. Let me start by saying the National Executive Council of the Institute of Corporate and Public Sector Professionals, the keynote speaker and Dean, Faculty of Management Science, Lagos State University, Professor B.R. Yusuf, distinguished guest speaker, captain of industry, representative of professional bodies and other academic institutions, the ICPSP Directorate, Director of Membership, Education, Publicity, even led by the Acting Registrar, Mrs. Olanrewaju, the Chairman of the ICPSP Annual Conference, Mr. Taiwo Moshood, the ICPSP Secretariat, and the associate staff, colleagues, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to be here, and in fact, let me extend my sincere tribute to the Institute of Corporate and Public Sector Professionals for allowing me the opportunity and the privilege to be in the presence of a lot of greatness. And when I say greatness, I mean great educational expert, great distinguished speaker, great senior colleagues, including academia, research professionals, those who felt that it is important at this point to speak about such an important topic, lessons from COVID-19. Let me commend the effort of the conference committee, perhaps for the choice of this conference team. I'm most especially convinced that speaking about poverty, extreme poverty as a symptoms of COVID-19 in Africa, I want to align my thoughts with that of Nelson Mandela when he said that I could, as long as poverty, injustice, and gross inequality exist in the world, none of us can truly exist. In fact, it is so hard to speak about poverty without going historically or going into history and acknowledging the work of Father Joseph Rusiski. Father Joseph Rusiski assembled people at Trocadero in Paris, where the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was signed to honor the victim of extreme poverty, violence, and hunger. It was on this occasion that poverty was proclaimed to be a violation of human rights. Very recently, the United Nations General Assembly President, His Excellency Tijani Muhammad Bande, convey a high-level meeting that focuses on trend, opportunity, and strategy in poverty eradication across the world. And during this meeting, President Bande said, and I quote, "While poverty is bad and has been established as such, the COVID-19 pandemic had made a bad situation worse." He went further to say that before onset of the pandemic, 2.1 billion people were classified as poor globally, with 767 million living in extreme poverty. It is estimated by the year 2020, more than 100 million people would have relapsed into poverty due to COVID and climate change. President Buhari was at this event, and he mentioned that about 54% of Nigeria, roughly 200 million people, are living in various forms of poverty. Hence his commitment to lifting over 100 million people or 100 million Nigeria out of poverty within a 10 years timeline. But we must note that there's a time code or there's a day called the International Poverty Eradication Day. This day presents the opportunity to acknowledge the effort and struggle of people living in poverty, a chance for them to make their concern heard, and a moment to recognize that every life matters, including the life of those that are extremely poor. Who are the poor? What is the cost of the poor? I found this article very interesting. It was published on the website of the Global Citizen. And the title of the article is Everything You Need to Know and Understand About the Poor. An extract which I have chosen. It says that the majority of people living in extreme poverty are located in rural areas and lack the adequate education, work in agriculture, and under the age of 18. The article went on to say that there is no single cause of extreme poverty. Many people or many factors play roles: gender inequality, discrimination, conflict, and crisis can all limit access to infrastructure, services, and information that helps basic needs of people. One useful theory that one could employ to explain poverty is what we call relative deprivation theory. The theory explains how people who are deprived of things deemed valuable in a society, such as money, justice, status, and privilege, can perhaps join social movement with the hope of redressing their grievances. The relative deprivation theory remains a subject for further research. But we must note that for Africa to build a sustainable future, it is essential to intensify effort towards prevention of extreme poverty post-COVID, i.e. campaigning against inequality, promote inclusion, social and universal programs that enables the building of a secure, just, free, and harmonious society which offers opportunity for all. Let me draw reference from the contribution of Professor Stephen Deveres at the University of Sussex when he spoke at the Botswana Poverty Eradication Conference. Professor Stephen argued that nations with a strong commitment to social protection are more likely to experience what we call poverty reduction. In a similar view, Babatunde and Sharafa reveal the relevance of social protection in African nations in their report titled A Review of Potential Contribution and Impact on Poverty Reduction, published by UNDP. The report provides insight into nations such as Ethiopia, Kenya, Mozambique, and how other nations in Africa embraces social protection strategy towards poverty reduction. Now, putting social protection into context, we mean policies and programs which are designed to reduce poverty and vulnerability. It involves initiatives that promote efficient labor market, diminishes people's exposures to risk, enhance the capacity to manage economic and social risks, such as unemployment, exclusion, sickness, disability, and old age. Now, you agree with me, everyone, that there's a gap between the narrative of extreme poverty eradication and the fact on ground within the African nation. Hence, my expectation is that a conference of this nation should propel new thinking, set agenda for mitigating the impact of COVID-19, and offer policy contribution concerning economic recovery, social, and governance issues. And that's why I align my thought with that of the contribution of Professor Patrick Lumumba when he said, and I quote, "Poverty is an industry." You agree with me that COVID-19 has contributed significantly to the growth of the poverty as an industry. The economic effect and perhaps the multiplier effect of the COVID-19 pandemic in Africa is so much that we cannot overlook it. Hence, I would expect that a conference of this nation should provide useful insight into professionalism, education, and health matter needs of COVID-19. I expect the speaker to touch on economic recovery, SME, information technology during and after COVID. And lastly, to also touch on the role of not-for-government organization, NGO, during and after the pandemic. But let me say this, these conferences have a consistent thinking with the sustainable development goal. And that is the goal, that is the right antidote. It is the right response to the great challenges of the 21st century. It is the proper antidote to the loss of trust in the institution of all kinds. And in some countries, the loss of faith in governance. When we talk about the SDG, we're talking about the global goal, which is an idea representing the interlink of what one would refer to as 5P: prosperity, people, planet, partnership, and peace. And we should note that turning SDG aspiration into corporate plan is not easy. I mean, to achieve the SDG objective is not easy. It requires the traits that define the character of people like Professor Muhammad Yunus, people like Professor Marvin King, people like Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, and people like Nelson Mandela. And that's why it is my expectation that a conference like this will offer policy contribution in the form of a documentation which would possibly to pass to various stakeholders, and such documentation will cover the different dimensions of sustainable development, including economy, how the low-income African nation achieve the SDG, cover social issues, the importance of inclusion and equity, also cover environmental, tackling climate change and governance, the centrality of strong institutions. Governance in Africa is key and it requires urgent attention. And that's why I agree with M.O. Ibrahim when he said, and I quote, "There is a crisis of leadership and governance in Africa, and we need to face this crisis." And also, there's a very nice article which was written in honor of Professor Marvin King, published on the HIFAC website. The thinking and the philosophical thinking of Professor Marvin King characterize the write-up, which revolves around integrated thinking, corporate citizenship, and of course, good governance. Perhaps we should note at this point that corruption kills. Corruption is dirty. It affects the nation to grow. It affects and kills the aspiration of a nation. So we should say no to corruption. It impacts heavily on how a nation can fight what we call extreme poverty. We should say no also to what we call corporate fraud, because the corporate environment also has a role to play when it comes to ending poverty and extreme poverty. And corporate fraud has serious detriment to nation building. So you would agree with me, and perhaps you won't be surprised to see when the IMF research found that corruption and weak governance associated with low growth, investment, and tax revenue collection, and with high inequality and social exclusion. So what's the solution? Well, for me, I argue that criminal enforcement is essential, of course, but it is on its own not enough. Evidence shows that successful anti-corruption initiatives are built on institutional reform and emphasizes on transparency and accountability. For example, shining light on all aspects of governance budget. And that's to say that we have to scrutinize all the African nation palliative projects for perhaps for the COVID-19. So they need to scrutinize all of this to ensure that they are corrupt-free. Before I conclude, I'd like to share with the conference the word of Mary Robinson, former United Nations Commissioner for Human Rights, now the chair of the Elders Forum. Mary said, and I quote, "COVID-19 exposed the intersectionality between health, poverty, gender, race, marginalization, and disability. It is not enough for us to be known for what we're against. We need to be known for what we stand for." Professor Muhammad Yunus stands for the 3 zeros. Professor Martin Luther King stands for civil rights movement. Professor Patrick Lumumba stands for what we call the anti-corruption crusade. And also, we should have a dream as individual. As Kofi Annan said, without a dream, you will not get anywhere in this life. And that's why I like to share my dream and ambition with you for the African nation and what I like to be known for. I like to be known for what I call PEG. P means poverty. I believe in Africa where we can build a community of shared future for all humanity, where people are free from poverty and can achieve what we call common development. I believe in Africa where education or experiential quality education is not privilege, but a right we all deserve. I believe in governance. I believe in Africa where good governance, transparency, and accountability underpins both private and public sector. So I'd like to conclude with a special invitation to all the speakers. Let's be provocative. Let's be lively. Let's keep us all holding our breath, either in agreement or not in agreement. Because this is what conference is all about. Conference is about asking questions so that we can all learn together the great lesson from the novel COVID-19 pandemic. On behalf of the ICPSP, I warmly welcome you and I wish the conference committee a successful conference. Thank you very much, and I wish you a safe return back to your various destinations, and that is to all the distinguished speaker who has been hosted in a dedicated place by the conference organizer. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So we'll go on to the first panel session as you all listen to Mr. Olanrewaju Sharafa. The first panel session is looking at professionalism, education, and health matters. And you agree with me that these are three areas that, if well harnessed and effectively deepened with the right policy mix, can address the challenges of poverty and also help Nigeria navigate the COVID-19 pandemic. The chairman of this panel session is Mr. Moshood Polaromi, while Dr. Oluseyi Olanrewaju is a discussant alongside Dr. Folashade Ayebamen. Chief Agnes Fumilayo Sesi and Professor Ahmed M. Soni, they are all discussants in this panel session. But of course, I'm going to give the floor to the chairman of the panel session to lead us and do the proper level of introductions. The focus is professionalism, education, and health matters. These are three key areas that we want to see how pre and now post-pandemic we can navigate through them. They can contribute to elevation of poverty and achieve development for our nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. I really appreciate you. I would like to welcome Dr. Oluseyi Olanrewaju, who is one of the panelists for panel 1. And also, I would like to welcome Chief Princess Oluwafunmilayo Sesi. And also, I would like to welcome Dr. Folashade Ayebamen. You are all welcome to this panel session, and I believe you are going to enjoy yourself. Dr. Oluseyi Olanrewaju is a man of experience. He's a qualified chartered accountant, has experience in the field and in the profession, and also in the classroom. He's a great man, and you will enjoy his expertise during this panel session. Chief Sesi Agnes is also a very vibrant labor leader. He is the chairman of Nigerian Labour Congress, Lagos Division. Also, I will appreciate Dr. Folashade Ayebamen. He is one of the first Nigerians to study sport law. You are wonderful. Welcome to this panel, and I believe we are going to enjoy ourselves. I still maintain we shoot for Larame, the chairman of this panel 1. Dr. Oluseyi Olanrewaju, you are welcome to this panel. You are welcome to this panel, and I want to hear your thoughts on how far COVID-19 has impacted on professionalism, ethics, norms. Hope I can hear from you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm really excited and privileged to be part of this panel. As we all know, COVID-19 that have turned to be a pandemic has affected every countries of the world, not only Nigeria. Nigeria is not excluded. As at the last report, over about 20 million COVID cases have been identified over the world. Close to 12 million people discharged, and we look at the death toll is now running over 700,000. We see that every country of the world, all the players within these countries, talk of companies and all players, including professionals, one way or the other, have been impacted by this COVID-19. If I am to talk to professionals directly, or maybe I should give a bit too background. Businesses, are taking toll of the negative impact of COVID-19. I must say, it has happened before, and that's why we say there's no new thing under the heaven. So, as professionals, all we are expected to do during and after this pandemic is to hone our skills, keep our strategy ever green, and don't lose out on ethics, because that's the guys, one of the major tenets of professionalism. So what I will say, despite the various negative impacts of COVID-19, as professionals, we have a role to play in bringing back the economies of the world back to its main strength. And how do we achieve some of these as professionals? There are some skills that have been identified as current skill and future skills that every professional must bring to the table to bring companies, to bring this economy back to track. One of them is that every professional must now be digital savvy. You must know how things can be done more efficiently using technology. Prior to COVID-19, we've been talking about the fourth industrial revolution, which is focused on technology, using technology to drive business, using technology to deliver our various functions at various places of work, using technology to deliver education and all. What I see is that COVID-19 have brought opportunities to the table for us to fast track this fourth industrial revolution. And we will observe that in various countries that have been locked down for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, in some countries about 4 months now. But I can tell you, some organizations, some schools have still been able to operate despite the fact that they have been locked down. And what has enabled this operation is the use of technology. So as professionals, we need to be techy, we need to be digital savvy. Apart from that, as professionals, we also need to still be technical and ethical, because when we use the word professional, we are saying that you are a master, you are a specialist, you know your onions. So as a professional in this pandemic and after the pandemic, you are supposed to still be technical. And how do you get technical? We know you are a professional prior to that. Is to say that as professional, you must continue to learn, you must learn, and you must learn, because a lot of things are come. Because one major point I need to also mention is that professionalism description or definition is not going to change. The only thing that is going to change is how professionalism is being carried out in this pandemic and after the pandemic. As we know, people have been saying that the new norm has come, and the new norm, is technology. The new norm is work from home. The new norm is strategic thinking. The new norm is to be ever flexible. The new norm is agility. So as professionals, we need to be aware of all these new skills for us to be able, to provide the necessary solutions to the various problems that the pandemic has brought to the table, and to be able to be relevant now and going into the future.
Because of time, all protocols duly observed. Well, according to the study in year 2018 by the Lancet of Global Healthcare Assets, Nigeria healthcare network has been declared or rated amongst the worst healthcare in the world. Out of about 195 countries evaluated, Nigeria came a distant 142. And that is to show us that Nigerian government need to do so much as to bring about a very good and quality educational, health care that will improve the health status of Nigerians, most especially during and after this pandemic of coronavirus. So many people have not been believing that the government is doing anything or much as to the issue of coronavirus because of some factors. Because of economic disparities and access to health care by Nigerians, political factors, because of environmental factor, and also because of education, culture, also because of nutritional status, people's belief. We have in this country never trusted our government. In year 2015, the president of this country, President Buhari, it was part of his campaign that when he gets on board, he will ensure that medical tourism will become a past history. But in year 2017, the same president has to go to UK for about 4 months on medical tourism to seek for health care in abroad. But what we have in Nigeria, people don't actually believe in this government because of the antecedent of our successive government over the years. We have a situation in which all our healthcare system in this country has either been running on a low or not being upgraded. The quality is on low ebb. And what we have is healthcare workers, at most times they go on strike because of either their salaries are not being paid or their welfare has never been taken care of. According to a survey, about 2,000 doctors trained in Nigeria are working in UK currently. And we have a brain drain. People who are well qualified, trained in Nigeria that were supposed to have taking care of the healthcare of Nigerians, they have left the shore of this country because of the attitude of our leaders. Thank God, Nigerians are now mocking our leaders and mocking the rich, because when a rich man sneezes or having a headache, the next thing is that they take the next available flight and then they go abroad to seek for medical treatment, even for headache. But now with this pandemic and all over the world, globally, all the countries are struggling and coming up on how to take care of the health care of their citizens. Now, and the health space is being shut. Our leaders are being locked down in the country. And the poor are now mocking them and now telling them that now that you have been locked down in your country, let us see how you will be, you will go for medical tourism or how you will get a quality medical health care. Well, with this pandemic, some of us are now, saying it that thank God this could happen. It will make the government now to show concern about how to raise the health care.
Thank you very much. We are enjoying. We really appreciate your effort to be enlightening us. And we are good at. One reality is that you can never remove comradeship from a comrade. Mrs. Fumi is a labor leader, and he has shown that. I will come back to you, ma. I would like to go to Dr. Mrs. Revamped. I want to ask her some few questions that are related to education. Dr. Folashade Revamped, how do we react to COVID-19, looking at it from the education perspective? Can you come in, ma?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate the organizer of this August program. And I want to say that all protocol duly observes. You see, when we look at the incoming of the COVID, it's something that we look at as a challenge. But I want to say that standing between the COVID and the new normal that the federal government are advocating for, it is paradigm shift. What is it? We need to look at, we're talking about a new normal. What is standing in between is that we need to shift. We need to move. We need to believe that the normal classroom, we have to change to the virtual classroom. And we need to move, that the analog we have to change to the digital. And we also have to look at the low technology, have to change to the high technology, because it is the event of this new technology changing that we can have this virtual conference today, thanks to the organizer. If it were to before, we'll have to gather, travel, and all that. It actually means that when we're looking about paradigm shift, it means that we have to move from our place of comfort to the new normal. And when we can do that, we can't do it alone. We need to adapt change to help and see that the education system getting better. Yes, there is no doubt. The educational system, there is a discontinuity. But I want us to believe that we need to inspire ourselves. We need to have hope. And we need to believe in ourselves that we can do it. We can bring the educational system of this country to a new normal. And I want to say that apart from moving through the, priority shift, we have to look at, shifting direction, how to make education to be better, and also to take it to the place where it is not really reaching now. We can have a very big center for them. We bring in the equipment. We make sure that as much as we can do, the education is able to get across to those people. And I want to say that as an individual, I am not looking at just a new normal. I want us to move from the stage of this new normal we are looking at to the next normal, because the pandemic will be over. It has come to stay for a while, but because we are human and we can make it, and you look at education sector, it cannot stop. We have to keep moving. And one of the way we keep moving is the organizer of this program are showing us. So I want to say that standing in between the pandemic, the COVID-19 challenge is a paradigm shift. And when we're shifting to the new normal. And by the time we get to the new normal, we're not going to stop at the new normal. We're still going to move to the next normal. So it means that we keep going forward, we keep moving forward, and we keep seeing the educational system moving. And I also want to say that from the beginning of the COVID to now, it's been a progressive system. We have moved, we have developed. And I can say that the new normal is making us to be more creative, innovative, and it's going to change a lot of things. Because what we need to do right now is to stop the fear factor. There's a fear factor everywhere, but we need to stop it. And we also need to stop the confidence trap. This is how we do it. It cannot be changed. No. So we need to move to the stage. With this paradigm shift, we're going to move from the stage of COVID-19, challenge to the next level of the new normal that is being preached. But I want to say we'll move further to the level we'll call the next level. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Folashade Arebame. I really enjoy your perspective. Now, I will try to move to Dr. Olanrewaju so that he can give us what are the set of skills you need now as a professional for you to be recognized or be to be enjoy the aftermath of COVID-19. I will respond from you, Dr. Olanrewaju.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In my opening message, I mentioned that we need digital skills as professionals to to pull through this pandemic period. Digital skills meaning that you don't need to go and be learning programming, but you must have the mindset that everything that is repetitive now that you do as a professional, they could be digitized. So it's very, very important. It will bring efficiency, it will bring transparency, it will also bring to reality the new norm, which you are currently seeing, which one of them is work from home. Another skill that will be required of professionals now and going into the future is technical and ethical skills. I mentioned this earlier, that as professionals that we have, we must continue to learn. People say learning is a lifelong journey. So at no point should you assume or accept that you have read enough. People even often say that if you stop learning, that means you are dying. So as professionals, we must own our technical skills and ethical and obey and respect our ethical standards, which include integrity, objectivity, professional behavior, professional competence, and to mention a few. Other skill you need as a professional is creativity skill, creativity intelligence. You need to be creative as a professional. You need to, think of how to solve problems. We are talking pandemic. What this pandemic has created is a lot of problems. So as professionals, we must look for solutions to the various problems that the pandemic has brought to the table. Another key skill is emotional skill. As a professional, you must understand your emotion and you must understand the emotion of your clients and customer or the team that you work with. Very, very important. You also need experience skill. When I talk experience skill, I'm saying you should be able to know what are the needs of your customers. You should be able to identify the problem of your customers and provide a lasting solution to these customers. And finally, as a professional, you need vision skill. You must determine from the beginning what the end should be as a professional. You must be a visionary, professional. So I believe some of these skills are what you need as a professional to thrive in this pandemic and after the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Olanrewaju. He has been able to update us that we need to digitalize our skill. We don't need to be a programmer for you to be relevant. And you need to look at your emotional intelligence for you to add value. Now, I would like to go let me go to Comrade Sensi Agnes. I really enjoy your view, but what are the solutions? The deed has been done. How can we protect our people? Looking at it from the manager perspective.
Well, thank you very much, the panel chairman. Well, with this coronavirus, we can actually see that there will be economic meltdown. The ILO has stated that about 26 million jobs will be lost globally. And we have started witnessing that in Nigeria right now. So many companies are laying off their workers, and so many are reducing the salaries of workers. So many. And how do we want the government to actually intervene? The federal government has said that about 39.9 trillion naira will be infused into the economy. We believe that this will actually go to the right places, so that this money will not go down the drain and will not end up as a fainting and attack during questioning and answers, during findings about how the money has gone down the drain. The federal government should, as a matter of urgency, help and assist not only the small-scale industries, but also multinational industries, so that job losses will be reduced to the barest minimum level. Recently, we saw a ShopRite advertising that they want to sell their corporate entity, and then they want to move out of Nigeria because of recession. Please, federal government, you should come to the aid of Nigerians so that abject poverty, about 50% of Nigerians are in abject poverty. Let us get our people out of this poverty because they need to feed well. If we don't feed well, definitely any virus can have its way into Nigerians. Number two, this is a new normal. Rightly, as Dr. Arebame has said, we need to go on e-learning. Visual classes has to be done more than the normal that we've been doing before of having contact most often. About 60% of our learning should be e-learning now. Also, we want to implore the federal government, since it is not possible now to go on medical tourism, why can't we improve on our healthcare services now so that Nigerians can have quality healthcare services in Nigeria? Not only that, we should build world-class hospitals. In China, when this epidemic came about, China built about 10-story building just in 1 month. Is it 1 month or 14 days? And it's still standing. What we have in Nigeria now is temporary tents that we are building. We even heard that one of the tents that was built to take care of the sick people in isolation center was, taken off by wind. It was like an umbrella, and when the wind came, blew it off. Is this what we sustain Nigerians? We don't want canopies, we don't want umbrellas. Please build hospitals, equip our hospitals, and then employ healthcare workers, human resources that will man all these hospitals, equipment, and that will take care of the health status of Nigeria. So that for once we have made this law that there should be no more medical tourism, let also the rich people stay in Nigeria. Let us use the advantage and use this particular pandemic situation to improve on our healthcare system. Not only this, about the new normal as well. I will also want the federal government to also stamp out the issue of corruption in our country. Corruption is on the highest ebb. Everywhere there is corruption, and once you talk about it, they start fainting. Should we continue in this way? I want to now talk as...
Thank you very much, my comrade. You are doing well, man. To round up this session, I will call in Dr. Folashade Arebame to conclude the discussion so that we can round up this panel one session. Dr. Folashade, can you come in, ma'am?
Yeah, thank you very much, Moderator Mr. Taiwo Moshood. You're doing a great job. I really appreciate you. Like I said earlier, what we can do is that the teaching has gone beyond business as usual. We all need to rise up to our responsibilities. And what we can do is that, the world of teaching is changing, and it's changing rapidly, and we need to change. We need to move. I said the other time that we need to take away this, the fear factors that we're seeing all around. We need to, forge ahead. We need to move forward. We have a baby to nurture, which is the education system, and so many other systems that is being affected in this nation, and even throughout the world, that we keep moving. We cannot stop, because the COVID has come to stay. And that does not mean that we have to be stagnant. And that is why we need to move. And I also want to say again is that we need to take away this confidence trap. Like one of the speakers was saying, and my comrade, that we need to forge forward. We don't need to be trapping, okay, this is how they do it. This is how it has to be done. No, we need to look for a new normal. And thank God that what they are giving is a new normal, not a recovery from pandemic. No, but a new normal, and which means that the classroom itself has to be restructured. Our educational system, there should be e-learning, and there should be distant learning. And our professionals, the teachers, the lecturers, they need to sit up to the responsibilities, because we can't leave our children at home. Yes, the COVID issue is making the entire family, the entire system to be bonding. But I want to say, I don't want to sound like a comrade, but I want to say that in closing, that we are united, because this thing is affecting the whole, the global at large. And I'm saying that we are connected. So collectively, we have to forge forward. We have to put this thing beyond the new normal and go into the next normal. And I want to say that, we are off the stop because of the pandemic, but together in solidarity, we are bridging the gap. And I know that by the time we bridge the gap, we will discover that we can cross to the other side of the pandemic. And that is going to be a new normal. And by the time we're bridging another gap, and we're going to the next normal. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
There's a need for more incentives, social safety nets for the most vulnerable in the country. There's also the need to reduce the cost of governance. That is one major conversation that we need to continue to emphasize, reducing the cost of governance. A need for us to have a localized ICT application in terms of growing our industry. when we see what is happening in the US, China, and developed economies, it's all about deepening and growing their IT industry. And of course, fast track restructuring of the economy. And when I say restructuring, I understand that this means more of diversifying our revenue because the economy has already been diversified. I would like to bring that clarification. But we need to diversify our revenue from dependence from crude oil to sectors like agriculture and solid minerals, amongst others. For the business community, it's a challenging time. They will have to look at effective crisis and risk management, retool their workforce, explore how they're going to manage their finances, and look at operations and supply chain management. The issue of taxation, as you're all aware, is something that businesses must understand. And of course, the brand and strategy management is very key. And of course, for businesses, they have to look out in terms of crisis management and communication with relevant stakeholders between them and government, exploring how to improve their supply chain, which has been disrupted globally because of the pandemic, and also maximizing the use of government policies and support. In this period, it would be nice to see how people are assessing the various interventions from government, and of course, their finances, how they manage their finance is very important at this time. So those are very, very notable and laudable interventions from Professor Babatunde Yusuf. It's now time for our second panel session. And of course, we all know that this panel session is expected to be very robust and bring some lively perspective because of the coverage of what they have. This panel session will be looking at economic recovery, which is very critical now. SMEs, small and medium enterprises, which are the drivers of economic growth anywhere in the world, and the information and communications technology sector, which is now described as the driver of the fourth industrial revolution, and not better time to discuss about that.
Hello, sir.
And we're discussing issues like remote work experience and digitization. For this panel session, the chairman of the panel session is Dr. John B. Oyetade, while Dr. Shofayo Toyeshe, Jackie Chai, Dr. Judu Hamid, and Mr. Michael Alatishe are discussants in this session. I'll give the floor now to Dr. John B. Oyetade in the panel session, while he will do proper additional introduction for all the discussants. And I believe that there's one question that came from the people that participated, and we'll hope to send that question to engage this conversation, because what makes a conference very engaging like this is when people send in questions and their chats and feedbacks. So back to you, Dr. John Oyetade.
Yeah, we are welcome to this second panel. And our topic is on economic recovery, small and medium enterprises, information technology during and after pandemic. And to kick off this program, we'll look at first for the economic recovery to be taken by Dr. Shofayo Toyeshe. Dr. is from Lagos University. Over to you.
It's my pleasure, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be part of this event and to lend my voice to the subject matter of the day. I'll be speaking on economic recovery during and after the pandemic. Well, without any gainsaying, the pandemic, of course, has caused economic recession, both domestically and globally, as a result of the lockdown of the economy that was part of the measures the governments had to take in order to minimize the spread of the pandemic. Now, as a result of this, the economy domestically and globally witnessed a recession. Production and manufacturing activities came to a halt. The real gross domestic product suffered a sharp decline across board. Countless jobs were lost as businesses were shut down. Liquidity squeeze stepped in as new cash flows gradually dried up. Earnings declined substantially at both the public and private sectors. Profit margins dried up. cases of business bankruptcy and insolvency gradually swelled. There were cases of loan defaults and inability of borrowers to meet their debt obligations as at when due. Business projections capitulated all over. There were cases of high volatility in foreign exchange rates, especially in countries with weakness in ability to generate FX. There was decreased spending and purchasing power and weak demand. Supply chains were badly disrupted, and there was low morale and palpable fear across the entire globe. Now, in the course of efforts to strike a suitable political and socio-economic remedy, economies all over the world have propounded various theories and concepts to project what economic outlook is likely to be after the pandemic. Now, I'll be taking a look at the position of a particular school of thought, that is the Hopkins Institution, which used the model of Z-shape, L-shape, U-shape, W-shape to describe what the economy outlook is likely to be. Now, the Z-shape economic outlook is the most optimistic one. It identifies the fact that the economy declined during the pandemic. It equally expects that after the pandemic, the economy might witness a boom and bounce back above the level it was before the pandemic. That is the Z shape. The number two is the V shape outlook. The V shape outlook assumes that the economy might permanently lose the production that would have occurred if the pandemic had not taken place. Secondly, the economy will now witness a very quick return to the pre-pandemic baseline once the lockdown is lifted. Number three is the U-shaped economic outlook, which is referred to as the optimistic outlook. This assumes that economic effects of the pandemic may extend beyond the end of the lockdown and social distancing. It equally assumes that GDP will recover slowly and the economy might get back to where it will have been, but it will move rather slowly. Then the fourth one is the Nike shoe shape. The Nike shoe shape assumes that the economy will start to bounce back sharply after the pandemic, but it will take a longer time to revert to the pre-pandemic trajectory because the public and the private sector will be hesitant to spend. The next is the W-shaped outlook. The W-shaped outlook assumes that after the pandemic, the economy will be reopened and pick up. But in case there is a resurgence in COVID-19, the economy will go down again. And after the second resurgence, the economy will pick up again, and strategies deployed will determine whether it will go above the baseline or will remain below the baseline. Then the last is the L-shaped outlook. This one is referred to as the most pessimistic. The L-shaped outlook assumes that the pandemic will cause a permanent decline in the economy, and the economy will not be able to pick up. So what are the steps that we need to take in order to ensure recovery measures? There must be major improvements in treatments as well as the search for the vaccine to ensure that we're able to push the pandemic behind us. a timely discovery of vaccine will be very necessary. Technology will play a very massive role. Of course, social distancing will continue for a while. Social events are expected to remain curtailed for a long time, and governments will have to improve healthcare system and social benefits in order to alleviate the sufferings of the people. Finally, the peculiarities for Nigeria as a nation are that there must be efficient diversification and optimum balancing of the Nigerian economy. This is actually overdue. At present, the oil sector contributes 95% of Nigeria's foreign exchange earnings and 80% of budgetary revenue. This is a clear case of revenue concentration risk and undiversified economy. So Nigeria needs to work on this. Nigeria is equally a very small economy at present. In 2019, the size of Nigerian economy was 146 trillion. This is very small. We need to work on improving our GDP in order to improve the welfare of the masses. Nigeria has been borrowing heavily. We need to ensure that the money we borrow is judiciously utilized in order to ensure that the dividend goes round and to ensure that we are able to repay the loans as and when due.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So I'll have to stop here
Dr.
because of time. So thank you very much.
Dr. Please, thank you very much for the presentation. Before we give the questions, let us hear from Dr. Jackie Jai from Malaysia. Dr. Jackie Jai from Malaysia, let us hear your discussion on this economic matter concerning this pandemic period. We are waiting for you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Chairman, and also the committee members. It's my pleasure to be here, to be invited to the event to share my thoughts to your countries. So I'm from Malaysia, so I'll be sharing my thoughts on the general economy of Southeast Asia and also the SME survivability in Southeast Asia, and also that how we differentiate the opportunities and the economies during and after the pandemic of this COVID-19. So in Southeast Asia, we generally divide our economy into 4 different segments. First is the very economic type of country, which is countries like Singapore, and very relaxing economy country like Thailand. And Malaysia is one of the mixed development country. And also for the others, they are more depending on the agricultural sectors. So for these 4 sectors of countries, all of them, they are all facing difficulties during and after the pandemic. But overall, the one that can recover faster will be the economic sector, which is countries like Singapore and also Malaysia. Mixed development, we are doing quite well because first thing, our government really is quite a huge assistance for the businesses, but we do encounter some companies that closed down because of this pandemic, and also even though there are assistances offered by our government, and they are not able to survive. Actually, it was because of they failed to respond and to be spontaneous to technological changes, and also because of their lack of education infrastructure, and also not able to adapt to the swift changes in during this pandemic. And also we do face some companies who closed down after the pandemic, and they are actually not fortunate to survive the pandemic time, because actually there were assistances offered by our government to these SMEs and also some of the bigger companies during the pandemic. by way of giving grants and also financial assistance, subsidies, government subsidies, filing extension, moratorium, but they are not able to survive after the pandemic because they are not able to change their business structure. They are not able to adapt to the new normal. Okay, so for the SME survivability, I would share that our SMEs in these Southeast Asia countries, we are very highly depending on the government assistances, right? So one thing is they don't have enough reserves. These SMEs, they don't really put their money into the right places, to the right investment. They are not able to diversify, and they are not spontaneous enough to respond to these quick changes. And they are, in terms of revolutionary, they do not have enough knowledge. They have the lack of dedication and also the resources to back up their businesses. So that's why in Southeast Asia, the SMEs will be able to survive only for those who are able to adapt to changes, who can adopt technological changes very quick, and they are able to they are more educated people. So, and for while for the opportunities and the economies that we identified during the and after this pandemic was so during and after this pandemic, we have seen a lot of businesses. We can separate these business people into two different types of people. One is opportunist, one is the economist. While the opportunists are for short-term survivability. Well, because they are not innovative, because I believe there are a lot of countries knowing that Southeast Asia or the Asian countries, they are more like a mirror economy. They are not very innovative people. And most of the economy sectors are a mirror copied of from those innovative countries. So they can survive in the short term, but not for long term. And these businessmen actually this kind of economy will be eliminated and identified very quickly during and after this pandemic, and they can be kicked out of the economy very soon. While the other group of people, which is what we called economists, these economists are those who are able to identify new chances, new opportunities during and after this pandemic to help the societies, to build up societies. And we call these people as a more sustainable business people. So what we can conclude is that this during and after these economies, we can say that these economies will be a great help to the economy after all. And also, what we can stress on will be the education, infrastructure, and flexibility of businesses are the keys to survive this pandemic. And also, one thing that we need to stress on will be the adaptability of business, because after this pandemic, all the businesses will have to adapt to new changes and new normals. So that would be from me. Thank you very much.
Look at your presentation and want to just advise our high population of participants on how can you advise a country and businessmen that are taking loans, this is an economic issue, and now they are unable to pay because they've not been making profit. Then how would they overcome the challenges of high interest rates? And at the end of the day, they will not really go under even after the pandemic. Especially the countries involved that are taking loans and some other things like that, that are not in any way able to pay back, and they may have more difficulties more after the pandemic. Can you put some light on that, please?
Yes, sure. Our government actually also giving out assistances like loans, finance loans to businesses, but we do not see that these financial assistances will be of very great help if the businesses cannot help themselves to be innovative and to be adaptability.
Thank you. Dr. Sotayo, what can you say more on this to help our timid viewers? What can you say to help our timid participants over the world?
Concerning borrowing
and before the forward, how you guys there? Even after the pandemic, so that we don't go under.
Okay. There must be a system, an efficient system in place that ensures that loans collected are judiciously utilized for the purpose of approval. There must be adequate controls in place to ensure that loan proceeds are not diverted either into individual pockets or into sources other than the one for which it is approved. When infrastructures are being developed or are being built, there must be efficient supervision and monitoring to ensure that infrastructures are built according to service level agreements and specifications. And I am an apostle of developing projects, infrastructures that are self-liquidating, i.e., the infrastructure should be able to generate the cash flow to repay the loan as at when due. So there must be a system in place that ensures that cash flow generated by the project, by the infrastructure in the course of management are equally well managed to ensure that issue of corruption does not step in. I will equally advise that Nigeria needs to do a lot in the area of improving our value system. There must be transparency in our electoral system. We must put a very sound, reliable, and credible electoral system in place. Nigeria probably needs a constitutional review at this point in time to address the yearnings and agitations of the masses in order to ensure that all interests are adequately covered. There must be massive investments in value chain production in our oil refinery activities. Oil refineries must be resuscitated, and Nigeria must have self-sustenance in production of oil for local consumption and for export in order to generate adequate foreign exchange to fund our activities. Road construction is very, very important, and networking. Improved transport system is very important. Improved security of lives and properties. All these cases of insurgency, banditry, killing our people, honestly, must be stopped. In the area of power sector, Nigeria needs to improve. In the areas of generation, transmission, and distribution, the transmission company of Nigeria at present is solely held by government. There must be diversification in this area. Let government release, part of the equity holding in the transmission as they have done in generation and disco, so that we can have better efficient.
Thank you very much. You've done a good job with that.
Dr. Jackie, we're happy with what you have done, but just hold on for us a little. That's what we hear from Dr. Ojoju Ahmed, also from Lagos State Polytechnic. In the area of small and medium enterprises, as it relates to the pandemic.
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Ojoju Ahmed from the Department of Business Administration, Lagos State Polytechnic. I want to recognize and appreciate the chairman of this panel, another distinguished member present here. And I want to appreciate the fact that I'm opportune to be part of this August occasion. So now say the ball rolling. The significance of a small and medium scale business in any country is so germane to the extent that we all know that the larger part of employment were generated by this SME. However, because of the recent phenomena, otherwise known as pandemic, otherwise known as COVID-19, has hindered some of the activities of this small business. However, COVID-19 pandemic is a global phenomenon that is that has become the order of the day. But with significant decline in both provision of healthcare services and economic activities in all over the world, this threat to corporate existence due to the declining profitability and erosion of fund and shareholder wealth, specifically small, medium-scale businesses enterprise. During the economic meltdown in 2009, global economic output reduced by 2.9%. Worldwide trade declined by 10%, while private capital flow reduced severely from $7 billion, evidence from Virgin 2016. However, the COVID-19 pandemic presents a more worrisome dimension than the global economic meltdown of 2009, as we all know. In addition, it's potent to the fact that sequence to the corporate existence of the SME have been affected by decline in their profitability and some of the other economic challenges confronting SME, as noted by some of the evidences by Virgin and others, including demand shocks, price volatility, high cost credit tightening, shortages of trade finance, and protectionist measure in the export markets. The impact of these challenges on SME is seen as a significant increase in layoff. It has led to this increase in layoff, cancellation, financial hardship, bankruptcy, and sharp drop in businesses ownership. Evidence from FAIR 2020 and same 2012. To cope with these challenges, different cost-cutting strategies are adapted by SME, among which include outsourcing, working remotely, layoff, temporary closure, etc., etc. Entrepreneurial recovery strategies encompasses doing things differently, such as the reformulation of a film products, services, markets, or technologies. While efficiency recovery strategies involve doing basically the same thing on a smaller and more efficient scale. Due to the economic importance and relevance of SME, governments across the globe has provided incentive and subsidy for the development of a SME sector at all times. In the current situation, various stimuli packages have been arranged to cushion the effect of this pandemic on SME. SME response strategy by government are usually focused on three key areas, among which include supporting sales and preventing depletion of SME working capital, enhancing SME access to liquidity, and helping SME to maintain their investment level. But a number of concerns have been raised regarding access to COVID-19 relief funds and stimulus package for SME, such as bureaucratic difficulties and problems associated with confirming the eligibility of the applicant because of inadequate of a database, particularly in this part of the world. In conclusion, though SME are the heart of the economic activities in every nation and are the main instrument for job creation and economic growth, they have suffered really from the current pandemic. However,
thank you for that presentation. You know, we have to just at this point hold on a little so that you can take this question. When we look at SME and we look at the COVID-19 pandemic, we want to know how do that government and the investing public on the possibility of getting over challenges that are waiting for people after COVID-19. Yeah, I mean, just a little.
Thank you, Sharafa. Basically, we all know that the current pandemic has created a lot of hardship for small and medium-scale businesses. But I think the appropriate strategies that need to be adopted by SME in Nigeria now is to engage in cost-cutting measure like outsourcing, downsizing, more importantly, work from home as a way of reducing costs. In addition, they should also comply strictly with government measures, government guidelines, such as social distancing, use of face mask, temperature check, and the use of a sanitizer. And more importantly, government stimulus package and other SHIP funding should be a source of revenue to be given to SME so that it can be able to improve their performances and encourage the growth of the Nigerian economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Really appreciate it. So now on the Dr. Teacher, who's a consider in IT development, and we have you now to discuss on information technology during and after pandemic. What should we look at? So, Mr.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman, and my appreciation to the Institute for giving me this opportunity to reach out to all the participants as well as the panelists. I've tagged my own point on digital economy, as in this is more or less like what COVID-19 has actually revealed to us. COVID-19 has actually changed the business model of most businesses who really don't know the impact that the digital economy is bringing on board onto their own business.
Dr. Yudu, can you stand up for a minute on this one so that we can get to the other things? So your SME.
Basically, as you all know, SME is the heart of some of the survival of most of the country throughout the world, and the significance of SME cannot be overemphasized because of high level of employment they generate in the society, their contribution to the total GDP of any country, and more importantly, they are geographically spread, which reduced the migration of people moving from rural area to the urban area. I think government should do enough to make sure that they cushion the effect of this phenomenon called pandemic, so that the small and medium scale business can come to the light again, since we all agree that they are more important and more significant to the development of any nation. Thank you very much.
Okay, Dr. Shmayo, can you give us a reminder of what you have done so I can look at it? That's it. Summary.
Okay.
So that is a take over.
Okay, in conclusion, I would advise very strongly that we need to improve our healthcare system and facilities for the benefit of the people. And we need to diversify our economy and improve the size of the economy substantially. And as government is taking efforts to address all the problems, it is equally important for the people to observe strictly the safety measures that have been put in place in the area of social distancing, avoiding large gathering, and keeping to all the safety measures in order to further protect lives. Thank you very much.
I want to thank the panelists who made very remarkable contributions to the issues around economic recovery, small medium enterprises, and indeed the information and communication technology space. We'd like to say that your contributions were notable, and I would begin with that of Dr. Ojodu Hamid of Lagos State Polytechnic, LASPOTECH. He raised something of immense concern, which is that amidst the interventions from governments for small, medium enterprises, which is very important for this time, there's need to address the issue of bureaucracy and eligibility for those that are applying for loans, because we need to see traction in terms of the huge interventions. Currently, there's an additional intervention that's come out, which is the Nigerian Youth Investment Fund. So those funds need to really scale down to SMEs, and we hear you very well, Dr. Tudu Ahmed, on that. And then for Dr. Sofayo Toyeshe, you made some very critical interventions. And one that caught my attention was the need for Nigeria to invest more in projects that can be self-liquidated. As we continue the debates around loans collected and managed, we need to invest in projects that can create more value and are self-liquidated. You also raised the importance of investing in value chain production, because that value chain production will boost industrialization. And of course, you raised a very fundamental issue, which I also like, which is the need for us to restructure our nation, particularly the electoral system, because with such, we can have more leaders that can lead us. For your interventions, we couldn't have Mr. Michael Latishe due to some connection challenges, but
I am available now. I don't know if I can probably just have a minute or so to round up.
So the ICPSP, said earlier, is a non-profit organization committed to raising managers and leaders who can make a difference, make impact, and bring positive change to our nation, which is critical at this time. It has over 15,000 members and is open to contributing to transformation and change. And to achieve that, they are willing to work with more partners who believe in this cause and support the activities. And so this is calling on volunteers, those that would like to support the activities of the ICPSP. There is an opportunity for you to continue to engage and see how you can be partners in development for this institute. And so the institute has its platform beyond this conference. It's not just about the conference. They have opportunities to galvanize activities that are geared towards growth and development. So to be a partner, you can access them through their website. They have their website, which is info@media@ICPSP. So you can connect with the ICPSP Institute to continue to see how you can contribute to change. It's the age for governance, is the age for investing in human capital development. It's also the age for addressing poverty in Africa, and how best to do that through very strategic alliances and organizations like the ICPSP. Like I said earlier, the aim of this conference is to address the current state of the nation and our citizens during and after the pandemic. And so far, we were able to discuss extensively. The first panel session looked at the issues around education, health, and professionalism. Second panel session will be able to look at economic recovery and the small medium enterprises and information and communications technology. And so we're going to have the last panel session, because this has been a very engaging conference. And I guess that we've also seen that in terms of participation. We have hundreds of people eager to join on. We've seen chats, comments around governance. People have been asking questions, particularly the major recurring chat or question here is around the issue of how government can help manage the economy for all the citizens to enjoy the benefits amidst the pandemic, particular issues around education and even healthcare and intervention programs. We've also seen through the speech the lead speaker, Mr. Olanrewaju Sharafa, and Professor Babatunde Yusuf, they both agree that this is the time for government strategy to be inclusive in terms of economic growth and approach. There is also the common agreement amongst every speaker so far here that we need real-time, robust intervention programs that will help the citizens. That means we will call for more scrutiny. We would also call for more accountability from government beyond the disbursement of funds to the social intervention programs. Also here, there's been a common agreement, and all key speakers have alluded to the need for healthcare to be revamped in Nigeria. For those of us that are aware and following the situation, we see that this pandemic reinforced the need to invest in healthcare. We've seen that medical tourism has been a challenge. We've spent more services abroad than here. So this is an opportunity for us to scale beyond the various interventions in the healthcare that we've seen, building isolation centers, to equipping our hospitals down to even the primary healthcare. I'm very particular about the primary healthcare because we need to have functional primary healthcare across the country, where those in the rural areas who are affected by the challenge of poverty can access healthcare at affordable cost. And I believe that this is one thing that must be a takeaway from this conference. And indeed, the issue of transparency in governance. Corruption should no longer be the narrative, but accountability and transparency. And so we believe that at the end of this conference, we would have a common statement, communicate, that will emphasize the front burner need for our country to move forward. Talking about the interventions from the previous panel, Dr. Jackie Chai from Malaysia gave us an overview of what is happening in Malaysia. I want to also thank her for her intervention in the second panel that we had. She gave us insight into Southeast Asia, the government's approach to interventions in the region. And she said that so far the small medium enterprises are heavily dependent on government assistance because of not having huge reserves. But she sees more opportunities for SMEs to innovate in this time in the Southeast Asia region, which has countries like Malaysia, Singapore, and key drivers. And she also, when asked about how climes like Nigeria and Africa can scale, said education, infrastructure, and sustainability must be the key approach to take moving forward. And so that was from Dr. Jackie Chai from Malaysia. Speaking about this conference, we noted that the virtual platform was utilized, the Zoom video conferencing platform, and has once again re-emphasized the need for us to leverage technology. And so I want to really thank everyone that's joined as we now proceed for our third panel session, the last for the day. It's going to look at the third sector. You will really want to listen to what the third sector is all about, its role during and after the pandemic. It promises to be a much, much deeper interactive session. And I guess they should be able to address some of the chats or questions that have also come up in the course of this conference. The chairman of this panel session is Dr. Aminu Suraju, while Mr. Dewale Ezekiel, Mr. Saliu Abdulaziz, Mr. Riwan Adisa, and Mr. Shola Lukman Yutunde are discussants. So those are the discussants for this panel, the last panel session. So while they get on, of course, and they're getting ready, we just also like to say that the ICPSP conference provides an opportunity for seasoned scholars, experts, and analysts to bear their minds on how we can grow our nation and economy. We've seen a lot of chats coming up here, and I must appreciate those who have sent their chats and questions, and I assure you that you will get responses if they're not addressed in the course of this conference. This conference is an annual conference and shows the need, once again, for us to deepen the public and corporate sector and space. So, like I said, there will be also opportunities to emphasize what has been said earlier for partners and for those that would like to join this institute that has over 15,000 members, not just only in Nigeria, but in diaspora from the UK, US, to other parts of the world. We really, really appreciate all those that have joined across the world for this conference. For those that may have joined now, just to emphasize the fact that even as we discuss today's topic around lessons from COVID-19, sharing ideas with experts. We have seen that COVID-19 has once again reinforced the need for innovation and governance. And we must note that some subnational state governments have been driving levels of interventions, particularly what we said about digital governance. So states like Ekiti, where we have Dr. John Kayode Fayemi as governor. Because if we talk about digital processes, if we talk about investing in digital technology, then we must see transformational leadership, exemplary leadership that takes effect in that regard. So these are 3 states so far that have taken the step of creating the enabling environment for more investment in broadband technology that can be the bedrock for driving a digital economy. And based on that, we want to encourage other state governments to follow suit to create the enabler for investment in the digital economy, because that's how we can achieve issues like e-learning. We can also create a platform for businesses to also connect across the globe and improve their services. And it can also drive further the 4th industrial revolution, which we all agree is going to be driven by digital technology. We also have various innovations that have come on board during this period. For example, we've seen interventions by the Lagos state government looking at telemedicine, which is a way of using technology to also reach out to citizens for healthcare. And so it once again shows the need for more innovation. We've also seen measures around tax reliefs from states like Lagos, like Akwa Ibom, and other states across the country. And so these are measures being taken by government. For private sector, we've seen more collaboration, particularly to COVID, the coalition against COVID-19. We've seen over 25 billion naira from the CBN-led approach, Central Bank of Nigeria, and even over 20 billion naira from the oil and gas sector. We've seen so much around this. Philanthropists have joined to support efforts at tackling the impact of COVID-19 on citizens, particularly investing in healthcare. But we call for more collaboration, more coordination of all these efforts so that we can address the issues of transparency and accountability. Also, a lot of talk here across the charts on the need for transparency in governance. We've seen the developments in various institutions, which is why the ICPSP is here to bring this discussion around why we need more transparency. So let's get on to the third sector and the last panel session to discuss the third sector. And I introduce the panelists and the chairman, once again, for the last time, so I don't sound but the chairman of this panel session that the third during and after the pandemic is Dr. Olanrewaju, and the panelists that we're discussing with him are Mr. Adewale Ezekiel, Talia Abdulaziz, Mr. Rewan Adisa, and Mr. Shola Lukman Oyetunde. So we'd like to give the floor to Dr. Olanrewaju to do the further, more effective introduction of all these discussants and lead the discourse. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All protocol observed. My name is Dr. Olanrewaju, lecturer from the Department of.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for the welcome address. And I want to also thank everyone for the opportunity being given to me to be here as one of the discussants on this panel 3. So my opening remark has to do with a brief on the roles of the third sector with respect to the pandemic during and after the emergence of COVID-19. When we take a broader look on it, we get to know that third sector actually augments both the private and the public sector because they perform numerous important roles in the development of an economy. The private sector, as we all know, render services and they produce goods which are tailored to the maximization of the profit, while the public sector, their own objective was to cater for the welfare of the nation. But the public can never have a maximum intake in catering for the members of the public. As watchdogs in monitoring the government activities in order to ensure that the members of the public are actually well catered for in the absence of the provision of palliatives and the rendering of prescribed medications, delivery of food parcels, in order for the members of the public to actually feel to be relieved from the emergence of the COVID, because we get to know that this COVID was never planned for, and most especially in the developing world, such as Nigeria and other countries, whereby some structures have not been put in place before the emergence of this.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on open remark. Again to Mr. Lukman, of course, it is an open secret that the COVID-19 pandemic has actually ravaged virtually all the sectors of the economy. TSA is not an exception. Can you share your thoughts on what are some of the changes that the pandemic will bring to TSA in Nigeria?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. The following are the brief on the changes that the pandemic will bring to the TSUs, most especially in developing nations such as Nigeria. The first of it is that the emergence of COVID will make the TSUs to actually restructure the formalities, I mean the modus operandi, in such a way that they will stem up in the aspect of global corporations. Most of the TSUs, they normally operate domestically within the local economy. But the emergence of this COVID has really taught them a number of lessons that operating locally can never get the objective met. But they have to cooperate, and they have to form an alliance with other multinational TSUs. I mean the non-governmental organizations and the civil society. Also, another point that we also portray this is it will also stem them up in the aspect of operating a digital world.
While you're waiting for Mr. Adewale, can you please share your own remarks in the next 1 minute?
Thank you, the chairman of the panel.
Thank you.
And the Institute for the opportunity given to me to be part of this discussion. First sector, as widely known, refers to non-governmental organizations, and their role in COVID-19 pandemic was so immense. There are various organizations we refer to first sector. Among them, we have Action Against Hunger, Revamped, Africa, and some others. Action Aid. Their role was so specific, was so abundant during the pandemic. And if you look at them, they are independent of government during the pandemic, and they work assiduously to achieve the desired goals. They are very close to the masses, to the people, and in terms of palliatives, they play a significant role during this COVID-19, and it's still ongoing. And in terms of community sensitizations, they use several media or medium to disseminate the first-hand information to people.
Thank you. Let me go straight to the question. TSA is bringing news and on in Nigeria, in line with the phenomenal growth in other parts of the world. What would you say about the role and functions of TSA, especially as regards catering for the well-being of the people, especially the most vulnerable, women and children, during this period of pandemic?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Yes, and nice to be here with you. Thank you, the organizers of this conference. I am glad and honored to be on this panel to discuss the third sector role in the pandemic that is happening. So, thank you very much for this opportunity.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Can I go straight to the question?
Yes, please.
Samia Abdelaziz.
Yes, please.
Inclusion has been a very inclusion social inclusion has been a very naughty subject in Nigeria in terms of inclusion of women, children, the poor, and what have you in the affairs of Nigeria. How will you think TSA can influence social inclusion and ensure significant poverty reduction in our country?
Okay, thank you. You say? Yes, I think I had the question. Thank you very much for the question. Yeah, social inclusion, women, and as we know, women and children are most marginalized in this in the world we are now, and it has always been a role the TSA play hugely. Like so, in this pandemic, what basically happens is the role of most organizations take to ensuring that project implementation or projects are centered to making these vulnerable people, that's women and children, get involved in most of the projects that are happening. They tend to benefit because they are most marginalized. Taking an example of the project I work on, yeah, is family planning. You realize that pandemic, quite a number of things change, as all the presenters previously have been mentioning, the new normal, taking things changing. So basically, there has been a huge change in the way that mobilization of getting to reach to these vulnerable children, vulnerable people, it's changed entirely, because how you get to meet up definitely has changed. And because of the pandemic, you realize that most women, for example, don't find it easy to access the family planning what's it called?
Thank you,
Hospital.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts.
In response to that question, I think what is very important is the achievement of objective for every organization or every individual, or specifically the third sector. I think the achievement of such objective is very, very important. And resources is equally necessary at that moment. So it therefore shows that the third sector needs to work hard in order to harness resources, in order to gather resources. But for them to achieve their objective, which primarily is to meet with the needs of the people, the vulnerable people, the women and young children, in order to meet with all of these needs, there is need for resources. Now, how would they now gather these resources? I think what is very key is they need to look beyond seeking international donations or requesting for funds abroad. So they need to look beyond this. Although that is one of the major key areas where third sectors, operators, or players, where they gather their resources. So they need to look beyond this. They need to perhaps extend their tentacles to other areas of investment where the profit from such investment could now be ploughed back into the organization in order to achieve the objective, the primary objective and goal of the TSA. So another important thing,
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Lukman. One of the greatest adverse effects of COVID-19 is drying up of global funding. There is no sector of the economy that has not been affected. TSA is therefore not an exception. How do you think the world economy has affected the flow of funds, bearing in mind that TSA relies mostly on funding from multilateral funding agencies across the world? How do you think this has affected the funding that is made available to this important sector of the Nigerian economy, TSA.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for that question. And in response to the question, it is a well-known fact that the emergence of the pandemic actually led to the inflow of all the sectors of an economy to die. These economy include the third sector, the non-governmental organization. And this has been from the aspect of debt crisis, I mean the management of debt, and also how the funds to be used for the operations can actually be improved upon. Inflation rate, because the aggregate demand of economy, let's take Nigeria as an instance, will actually increase, whereby the government expenditure will be having a corresponding increase on it. So the overall effect of it is that it has an economic instability on the whole economy. And when the economy is unstable, the revenue to be generated by sectors will be affected.
Thank you, Mr. Lukman. Mr. Dewode, of course, TSA, like every other sector of Nigeria, have without their challenges. We have a number of setbacks to deal with. Can you just identify two of these setbacks? And importantly, how can this be setback be surmounted? How can we overcome this setback? But this sector is a very important and strategic sector. Government can do everything they need to be supported and complemented. Please, what are the setbacks and how can we forward?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. TSA, like other sector of economy, they have their peculiarity problems and challenges and setbacks, especially in Nigeria. In response to that question, I will say that the first problem they have is funding problem. There's always a funding gap. And with this occurrence of this pandemic, there's going to be a reduction in the capability and capacity of the donor to TSA. So that's one of the problems that is likely to affect and is affecting the TSA in Nigeria. And the second problem is about the regulatory authority, which is government. Some of them form their parallel non-governmental organization to suppress the critical voices of the normal non-governmental organization. During this pandemic, most of them, because of the suppression due to regulatory legislation the government put in place, they would not express themselves the way they should. They would have shown. And when we are looking at the
Ajia Saleh Abdullah says, you've listened to Mr. Dewode analyze some of the challenges of TSA. Can you please help us to provide some solutions so that this important and strategic sector will move forward and help Nigeria in its journey towards economic growth and development? Can you please help us provide?
Yeah. Okay. So he highlighted some of the issues, one being international funding. Yes. So I think one of the ways to remedy that is the ability of that sector to be able to raise funding by themselves. A way of thinking outside the box, not relying solely on international funding, doing something extra. This could be, like, let me cite example with what we do. In my organization, the project I work, we do commodities, I still mention. So we have commodities for the organization that we sell. So it's more like a social means, and these are fundings we use to support other implementations. So strategies like that, I think, will help, so that, because relying solely on international funding will lead to so many challenges. Like, for example, during this pandemic, most projects, as you mentioned earlier, projects come, thousands of implementing partners are in the country, they come to implement on different sectors, education. So depending on what you do, the organization, third sector can always initiate strategies as to how they could generate funds by themselves to be able to implement.
Thank you, Sadi Abdulaziz.
Thank you.
Finally, before we bring this session to an end, everyone, now the discussion revolves around post-COVID-19. Ultimately, we expect COVID-19 to go away. TSA, like every other sector, should position themselves. How do you think TSA can be relevant in the post-COVID-19 era?
No, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, sir. I think one of the areas in which TSA could be relevant post-COVID, most importantly, is to look at their financial management, because that's very key. Corporate governance needs to be put in place, and they should also ensure, because we are now in a new normal, they should ensure their technological advancement, they work on technological advancement, and make themselves presence on social media. So they should work on their websites, making use of the Facebook ad and so many other factors that needs to be considered, especially from the aspect of technology. So they need to leverage more on technology, because that's where the world is moving into now. And more so, should they want to seek for funds, whether locally or internationally, they need to also work on their financial performance, like I've said earlier. The accounting records must be properly, must be in place, must be properly recorded. All their transactions must be looked into, and they must keep records. These are very key when you want to seek for funds. Even people nowadays, they do not trust most people who are working in the third sector, because of there is no credibility anymore. So for such to now, for organizations who are in the third sector, for them to be relevant after the COVID-19, they must make sure they keep proper records. That is very key, and they tap into the technology advancements that we now experience in the world so far.
Thank you, the panelists. I think you have done justice to the topic. And the highlights of the discussion is importance of funding in the third sector roles and functions. There is no any sector, not to talk of the third sector, that can actually play any significant role in any economy without funding. And of course, one of the critical sources of funding is international organizations. Then, as part of the discussion, I think it was also appreciated that there is a need to diversify the sources of funding. We can also look inward, but not totally relying on international organizations for the funding of the third sector. So, as far as I'm concerned, what is very critical to attracting funding is accountability and transparency in the use or utilization of the money. If the third sector get funding and use that funding efficiently, I think they will be well positioned to attract more and greater funding. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to the end of this session.
It has been a great pleasure welcoming all of you. And by far, you have contributed immensely to knowledge growth, research development, post-COVID development, and more growth to the Institute and to the general economy of Nigeria. And we want to say again, thank you to all our panelists, from Dr. Olanrewaju to Dr. Folashade Arebame, to Chief Agnes Folashade Formilayo Sesi, Professor Hamen Sauni, Dr. Oyetade, Dr. Ojodu, Dr. Jackie from Malaysia, Dr. Mike Alatishe, and Dr. Aminu Suraj, Dr. Adewale Ezekiel, Ajia Salia Abdulaziz, Dr. Ridwan Adiza, and Dr. Ishola Lukman. I want to say a very big thank you to you. And we believe in the nearest future, when we call you to come and add more value to knowledge growth, we will come in earnest. And I want to say one of the biggest thanks to Professor Babatunde Yusuf for creating time out of no time to be part of this international conference. And also I want to say a very big thank you to our lead paper presenter, Dr. Olanrewaju Sharafa from UK. Thank you for your knowledge contribution to knowledge growth. And we believe from time to time, we'll be calling on you to add more value. And I want to say thank you to all the associates of the Institute of Corporate Sector Practitioners. I really appreciate you. God will continue to strengthen you. And to our registrar, I want to say a very big thank you to Mrs. Omolara Adelakun for her effort to make this conference a success. And I want to thank everyone from Mrs. Kimberly to Dr. Latif Ganiu, to Dr. Raid, to Dr. Abbas Bello, to Mr. Raphael, who have done a great deal to our creativities, and to the cameraman who's at the background. And I want to say another big thank you to ProShare International for what they have done. This is great. And we are now partners. And from this, we have more value to add to Nigeria. Thank you very much. I remain Taiwo Moshood for allowing me, a principal accountant from Lagos State University.
Thank you very much. And to get further insight on this conference, you can join the website www.webtvngt.com to watch the video and read further news reports from this event. Also, the website www.icpsp.org for the organization to get further details around the activities of ICPSP and its plans. You can log on to that website. I want to thank everyone